things are getting better everywhere in nearly all industries, but your next question should be, how long? And
how long? That's my next question then.
Okay. I would suspect by the end of this year or next, we're going to come to the end, because so much money was pumped into the world economy. America, Japan, everybody printed. All this money printing is already leading to inflation. I mean, go to the shop. You don't shop. Your butler does your shopping, so you don't know. But we know. This time is going to price a lot of people out of the economy, because you print all the money, prices go up, there'll be a reaction somewhere along the line, a correction, but then governments are going to print more money, and it's going to get worse. Well, Peter, sometimes the cure is worse than the disease. And it seems to me that in the US, since we're talking about the cure is worse than the disease. America's got the highest number of cases, the highest number of deaths, everything that America...
Why do you think that is?
Well, America was not prepared for
exactly.
it. Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump had 2 months' notice. He didn't even have tests. You couldn't even get tested to see if you had the virus, because he was not prepared.
Well, if you were the governor of New York, you could, but keep going.
Okay. Most parts of the American economy were not prepared, even though they had a lot of notice. You look at how China handled it. You look at how Russia handled it. Most countries have handled it less badly than the U.S. But, I mean, nobody's done a great job. People are dying everywhere. But in the U.S., we did not act very carefully, and we have the worst record. But all of this closing down, if you ask me, and we will know in a few years, but the closing down is going to make it worse. People are dying, people have no money, they have no jobs. No, it's not good. A lot of companies are going bankrupt forever. Even when there's an economic disaster, the press has to cover it. It's always good for you.
You're putting me in a really bad
It's very good. You have job security. Because somebody has to tell us.
Somebody has to tell the bad news, right?
Yes, somebody has to tell us how bad it is. I don't know if we see more inequality. We've always had inequality. If you go back to Japan 300 years ago, or China 500 years, or India, oh my God, there's always been huge amounts of inequality in the world. Now, philosophers, religious people, generals, everybody tries to get rid of the inequality. Nobody's done it yet.
I would quibble with all of those examples as they weren't in a democratic environment, and we're told that everyone has a voice. Okay, in India of that time, Japan of that time, and there wasn't and there was no social contract. That's modernity. Modernity is a social contract. Okay, and that's the deal. And so if the state doesn't deliver on the goods that it promises, then you have a lot more tension. And I would argue that inequality makes people more dependent on the vote, because they feel that's the only thing they have to enact social change.
So you're saying democracy is going to make us all rich?
No, I would make a counter argument to that, but I'm just echoing what the elites are having to say. They're saying that solution. I'm not saying that is the solution. It might be a solution, in my opinion. I'm not going to die on that hill.
Well, with all due respect, I don't think relying on government is the best solution.
Okay, well, we agree on that.
If you look at for instance, I'm an American, so I'll use America. If you look at the American post office, oh my goodness, the American railroads, these are all owned by the government. Oh my, Peter, they're hopeless, they're useless. Now, if you want the government to run everything, it's not going, in America's experience, the more the government does, the less good we have.
Well, yeah, but you can also say that the commanding heights that are in private hands certainly get concierge service from the state, and I think that's again problematic here. When too big to fail is a great position to be in. Okay, when you're a small entrepreneur, a mid-sized business, that's what made me really angry about the shutdown, because the Amazons and the Googles and the Facebooks, they're all protected here. But when we're looking at people that don't look to the government, and then being told that you can't make a livelihood, that is very damaging to society.
It is outrageous, and the cure can be worse than the disease, and in America it is. Peter, politicians are not smart people. And American studies show that The people who are successful at politics are the people who were good at playground in school. In the playground, they were very, very popular. Everybody loved them. But they didn't know what they were doing. You know, they're just good at playground. So that's American politicians. These people are not smart people. That's
Well,
why
I think sometimes they go into politics because they can't do anything else.
that's what it is. They can't get a job. They can't get a real job.
Now, going from sanctions, let's go to another important point that I think is something that is very, very dangerous here. We see the politicization of the American dollar. This is on the tail of sanctions here. So I can answer that question. People will go into different currencies to get done what they want to do. It doesn't, but the dollar is supposed to be a fiat currency in and of itself. It is a medium of exchange, but it's being politicized. Isn't that damaging the dollar?
Peter, no currency has been the number one currency for more than 100 years in history. We've had lots of them, but none. And the dollar is coming to an end. Many people are trying to find a competitor to the U.S. dollar.
But is that a self-inflicted wound?
Yes. I mean, you just said it. A medium of exchange is supposed to be neutral. But if Washington gets angry at you, they say, sanctions, you cannot use the U.S. dollar. Well, so people say, wait a minute, that's not the way it's supposed to work. So now they're looking for competing currencies. China, Russia, India, I mean, all these countries are saying, we got to find something else. So the U.S. dollar is coming towards the end.
Isn't that dangerous?
Well, Peter, that's always happened. The pound sterling stopped. The Spanish money used to be the number one. The Dutch money used to be number one. The French used to be it. They all ended. France is still there. England is still there. America will still be there, but the currency will not be what it is now.
Is that a good thing to have competing currencies? Would you like to see that?
It certainly is. I'd rather be able to use anything I want rather than the government say, you must use this. No, hadn't you? Well, another approach to that, Asia has done a less bad job, but that's because they had the SARS epidemic, and they learned. They learned
something.
They learned. They didn't just say, They learned. They were better prepared than the U.S. was. I mean, I don't like saying this. I'm an American. But it's very clear. Mr. Trump didn't even have tests. You couldn't know if you had the virus or not because there were no tests. So Asia was better prepared, they say because of experience, and for whatever reason, they have done a much, much better job.